Wasn't that prelude uplifting? Oh my goodness. Our opening words this morning are from Maureen Halloran. In this free church, we come together without creed, focusing instead on the core values of justice, equity, and compassion, of mutual acceptance of our diverse ways of being as we seek to connect ourselves more fully with the unfolding truths of life and of our world. We come together in shared conviction that all people deserve a voice in matters that concern them, and that it is up to each of us to protect the rights of all, particularly those who, for whatever reason, have long been held in silence. We come together in the stubborn belief that community is possible and that peace is more than a dream. We commit together to affirm in our actions as well as our words the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. We come together in awareness of our interdependence with all humanity and with the wider web of existence, for that too is part of what we mean by we. In this free church, we come together without creed, believing that the way we live in the world bears testament to the value of our beliefs. We light this chalice as a beacon of hope for who have gathered here this day, for all who have ever walked through our doors, for those who may yet find this spiritual home, and for those whose paths will never come our way. For all this, and for all those things we dare to hope and dream, we kindle our chalice flame this day. Our opening hymn is We Gather Together, number 349. So please rise in body or spirit as you are able.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Annie Gonzalez, your Minister of Faith Development, and I welcome you, those joining us virtually and those here with us physically, to First Parish in Bedford, a Unitarian Universalist congregation where people have been gathering for almost 300 years to further the spirit of liberal religion. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whether you worship one God, many gods, or no God, you are welcome here. If you are newer to our community, we encourage you to fill out a blue card that you can find in your pews, or online. You can go to uubedford.org/newcomers/contact us, and that is a great way to get more plugged into what's going on around here and receive communications from us. I have a couple announcements about some upcoming activities. One is that our Holiday Artisans Market will be held once again at First Parish on Saturday, December 2nd from 2 to 6 p.m., concurrent with the lighting of the trees on the common and Santa's visit and all that good fun stuff. This event is co-sponsored by the Bedford Cultural District and the Gallery at First Parish. And so this is an opportunity for local artists and crafters to sell their unique artwork and crafts, and members of our choir will entertain us from 2 to 3 p.m. Ooh, that's an exciting treat. There will also be a children's fair downstairs run by Girl Scout Troop 72147 from 2 to 4 p.m. that offers free donated gifts that kids can pick out and wrap for people in their lives. So please come and enjoy and bring along whoever would like to engage in these activities. I also wanted to highlight that there's some of our photographers from this congregation are featured in a show at the Bedford Public Library, and it's from the Bedford Photo Group. And so I just encourage you to go and check that out. Bob Bass and Richard Kruzmark are featured in it. It's up through January, so you have some time to check it out. And lastly, the Social Responsibility Council needs your ideas for Share the Plate. We generously donate part of our offering each month to a worthy organization that is nominated by you, the congregation. And so if you have ideas of organizations that align with our UU principles and values, please send them to the Social Responsibility Council. Send them to Marge Heckman and make sure that we can exercise our generosity together. And now, with that, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join in our unison affirmation printed in your order of worship. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ley. Este es nuestro gran pacto, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en espíritu de amor, y ayudarnos los unos a los otros. You may be seated. I have a story to tell today, and I'm gonna need some helpers to tell it. So if you are a person who feels good about getting up out of your pew and doing a little very light acting, very light, no lines, get ready, because I'm gonna be calling people up. All right. So this is a story that comes from the Gospel of Matthew in the Christian scriptures. And it's a story that Jesus supposedly told, and it's about some workers in a vineyard. And so the story goes something like this. I'm obviously paraphrasing. Once there was a person who owned a vineyard, and he needed some laborers to work in his vineyard. So he went out to the central market where people might hang about looking for work. And it was early in the morning, and he found 2 workers to start working in his vineyard. So can I get 2 workers? Yeah, Eloise, awesome. I'm gonna need a lot more workers than that, y'all. Somebody's got to come work in the vineyard. Thank you, Bob. All right. So it's early in the morning, and these fine laborers are showing up to work. They're working in the vineyard. I don't know. Maybe you're picking grapes. I don't know. What do you do in a vineyard? Pick grapes. Let's pick grapes. We're picking grapes. They're picking grapes. And then, you know what? Realizes, I need some more workers, actually, because they're good, but there's still a lot of grapes to pick. So I'm going to go back out around 9 a.m. and get 2 more workers. 9 a.m., it's 9 a.m. Now, who's in the marketplace looking for some work here? Who's out there looking for some work? Thank you, Liz and Marge. Yes, excellent, wonderful. Pick those grapes. They're picking the grapes. But then I bet you're not going to believe what happens next. What happens next is I still need some more workers for this vineyard. And it's about noon. Oh, thank you, Karen. It's noon. I need another worker for noon. Anybody on the noon shift here? You know, the day is passing away. Yes, Carlo, excellent. Get up here and get on picking these grapes. That's excellent. All right. But it turns out there's still more grapes to pick. There's still more grapes to pick. So I'm going to head out about 3 o'clock. Oh, thank you, Carol. Thank you, Sandy. Get on up here. Pick some grapes. Excellent. And then, the day is almost done. The sun is starting to set, but I got to get a few more in before the end of the day. I just got to get a few more. So Randy, yes, Chris, awesome. No, you're not raising your hand. You're pointing at someone. You're picking grapes from there. We love that. Chris is over there picking grapes. I'm for it. This is an accessible job, and I like it. So we're going to pick grapes over there, too. So we're going to pick grapes. You can come pick grapes, too. That's good. We got everybody up here. Up here and out there, we're picking grapes. So then the thing that happens is it's the end of the day. It's the end of the day. And so I say, okay, it's time for everybody to get paid for their work that they did. So thanks for all the grapes. Very good. Like that? Okay, excellent. Now, let's see. Now, who got here at the end? Yeah. And, and Chris over there. I'll pay you, yes. And here's your payment for the day. Okay, and here's yours. Let's see, and who else came a little later? Well, we'll pay you, and you, yes, and then, okay, maybe you, and you, and you, and let me get you, and very last I'll get our brave Eloise. And everybody got paid the same amount. What's up with that? So some people were not thrilled. Do you imagine who might not be thrilled with this arrangement? Yeah, they were grumbling. The early morning laborers were grumbling. They're like, excuse me, but we worked all day, and some people just showed up at 5 o'clock, and I don't know why they're getting a full day's wage for that. But the vineyard owner said, well, I paid you a fair day's wage, didn't I? Did I pay you? Yes. We're going to say I did in this context. Yes, I did. I did. And so are you envious because I am generous? And that is the last question in the parable. Are you envious because I am generous? Basically, are you feeling angry and upset because other people got something they might not have earned? And I think it's a good question, and we're going to grapple with that a little more in our sermon. But thank you so much to all my workers. You were excellent vineyard workers. Give them a round of applause. Yes. And so, I know we don't have a ton of young folks today because it's a holiday weekend, but we're going to sing our kids' song, and if you are a young person and you would like to stay here, you're welcome to stay. And also, if you'd like to head up to the Overlook Room with Caitlin and Bradford, y'all can go up there. There'll be some coloring, some craft, just some hanging out, games, whatever. You'll be having a chill time. But we will sing our new Singing the Kids Out song together. May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go, be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
Good morning. My name is Marge Heckman. I'm a member of the lay pastoral team here at First Parish. And at this time in the service, we invite anyone in the sanctuary who would like to come forward and light a candle of joy or concern to do so. Please try to keep your comments brief and speak directly into the microphone. And after that, we'll check with those on Zoom to see if anyone's there. I'll also be at the candle stand after this service to light private candles. Hands, I will light one final candle for all those joys and concerns that we keep in our hearts.
of year can be a time of year when we focus on gratitude, and also a time of year when we notice some grief that might be seasonal. And so I invite us into a moment of tending to our gratitude and our grief. If it is part of your practice, please join me in a spirit of prayer. We are a people holding gratitude. Gratitude for new jobs and needed funds. Gratitude for the lives of those we love. Gratitude for chances to gather with loved ones, chances to feast on harvest meals, chances for connection. And we also are holding grief. Grief at diagnoses and deaths. Grief at the meals we couldn't attend, at the people who weren't present, at the disconnection that made them hard. We are a people holding gratitude for our relative safety and comfort, for things like sunshine in November. And we are a people holding deep grief for so many all over the world who do not live in safety or in comfort. May we tend to our grief and our gratitude together, nourishing ourselves and helping one another. Amen.
We gather today following our national celebration of gratitude for unity and abundance. For some of us, abundance lies in family, of heritage or of choice. For some, it lies in the bounty of cherished traditional foods and the resources that allow us to partake in gathering it, consuming it, and enjoying the leftovers. And for some, it lies in the freedom to take time away from our jobs, or thought away from our troubles. It's fitting to represent these many ways of abundance as a cornucopia, overflowing with the varied, precious fruits of our creation and others. In this beloved community, we covenant to contribute from our abundance to sustain this church and our endeavors in social justice. Please give generously to support the work of this church within and far beyond these historic walls. If you are a visitor to First Parish, we hope you will join us in making this sacred place and its goals of equity and justice a living reality. If you're joining us on Zoom, please go to uubedford.org and click Donate with One Church, or, as soon as I find it, text the word give and the dollar amount to 833-429-4774. Our reading this morning is the following poem by Reverend Julian Soto. I remembered you, remembered I was mad at you for the time you did that thing. Then I remembered myself, all human and imperfect. There were those times I did those things, and grace was never withheld from me. Not ever. This is the miracle. Come then, let us announce we are forgiven. We are beloved. We renounce intentional emptiness. We begin again.
A week ago, Thursday, I was sitting with a few people at Carlton Willard Village doing our small group for the month of November. And I create the small group ministry guides to reflect the worship theme for the month. And so, as you've probably noticed, if you've been at other worships this month here at First Parish, the theme for this month is equity. And so we were discussing equity, and one of our participants, Bob Schmaltz, said, well, you know, I saw a good cartoon picture about equity once, and I thought it was very simple and made a good point. And maybe you've seen this cartoon too. It has spread around quite a bit. It's a picture that has three individuals who are watching, let's say, a baseball game, and there's a fence. And these individuals are different heights. One is very tall and can easily see over the fence. One is sort of medium and can barely see over the fence. One is short and cannot see over the fence at all. Maybe that one's me. And the illustration shows that the best solution to help these folks isn't to give everyone a step stool of the same size, nor to withhold a step stool from all of them, but of course to give the shortest person the tallest step stool, and the medium person a medium step stool, and the person who can already see over the fence does not need any assistance at all. And it is a very good illustration about the concept, just as Reverend Jamie has been preaching the last 2 Sundays. Equity is about fairness related to your abilities, and we all have different ones. We're all different heights, we all need different blocks. In some ways, it's simple. But I jokingly asked, well, what if one guy brought all the blocks, and he wants to stand on the tallest block because he's the one who brought the blocks? Or what if one guy showed up early and waited all day for his spot at the fence, and somebody else just sort of wheedled their way in at the last minute? Even in a baseball-watching height thought experiment, equity can get really complicated really fast. So I figured that I would just start out with a very complicated topic then, racial oppression in the United States of America. In June of this year, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 6-3 to end affirmative action in college admissions. The ruling prohibits public and private universities that receive federal funding from considering race in their admissions process. The court ruled that these programs violate the 14th Amendment, which protects equal protection. Justice Clarence Thomas, arguing for the decision, said, "While I am painfully aware of the social and economic ravages which have befallen my race and all who suffer discrimination, I hold our enduring hope that this country will live up to its principles that all men are created equal, are equal citizens, and must be treated equally before the law." In the dissenting opinion, Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote, "The court subverts the constitutional guarantee of equal protection by further entrenching racial inequity in education, the very foundation of our democratic government and pluralistic society." Agreeing, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson added, "Deeming race irrelevant in law does not make it so in life." It's not fair, say both sides. It's not fair to prioritize people of color, says the black man. It's not fair to ignore racism in a racist society, say the women of color. Now, I feel pretty clear on which of these opinions aligns with my understanding of equity. But I think it's a good example of the conundrum that I'm sure you saw coming, since it is the title of the sermon. Is equity really fair? I think about that parable, the workers in the vineyard. I remember when we were grappling with this story at my Christian seminary. And I remember some students commenting that it reminded them of times they were part of group projects. And they did all the work and everybody got the A. And I thought about that and I thought, you know, that happened to me a lot in school, but honestly, I didn't really mind. Maybe it was because I kind of liked being in charge of the group project, so if I did all the work, I got to be in charge. Maybe it was because I gained a little bit of social capital by doing the work for other students. But I also think it was partially because as long as I got my A, I didn't care if other people got A's. It didn't hurt me any. And I think that's the point of the parable. When Jesus says, I am not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Or are you envious because I am generous? In other words, you got what you came for. Why does it bother you if someone else also got it? You lost nothing. This reminds me of another hot topic in recent political life, the student debt forgiveness debates. And while I am in favor of forgiving debt of many kinds, student debt, medical debt, I could go on, I also empathize with those who take umbrage with that idea. I can empathize with someone thinking, wait a second, I worked hard to pay off that debt over many years, and now we're just gonna give people some money? I can empathize with people who say, well, I chose an affordable school on purpose so that I wouldn't have debt, and somebody who just did whatever they wanted, now they get the handout? A narrative started to develop among some people who were opposed to canceling student debt about how this idea would take money from working people and give it to the lazy elites. A narrative about folks who go out and get fancy, woke, useless degrees, and how the good working people are now footing the bill. They don't deserve it, says the story. And one normal emotional response to this kind of story is to prove that they do deserve it. That actually, no, they're not just a bunch of lazy, woke elites. They're hardworking people too, and they deserve it too. It's like how I want to justify the late workers in the vineyard story. I want to imagine them as day laborers, waiting all day to be picked for a job, hoping they'll be picked for a job, waiting for their chance to earn their daily bread, and feeling more and more demoralized as they aren't selected until finally, at the end of the day, they get a chance to make a little bit of money. And then lo and behold, they get paid for the whole day. I like to imagine them as good, hard-working people who, through no fault of their own, just didn't get picked to work earlier in the day. It's always easier to feel that something is fair when you have a story about how people deserve what they get. But the complicated thing about that is that the value of equity, as it's written in our proposed Article 2 draft, doesn't say that every person who deserves it has a right to flourish. It just says every person. Every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. And not just survive. Not that every person has a right to survive, but a right to flourish. And the thing is, that's not fair. That those who work hard and those who don't contribute both have the right to flourish. That those who do harm and those who are healing both have the right to flourish. That those who oppress others and those who are oppressed both have the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. Now, to be clear, this doesn't erase the concept of accountability, which is a whole nother sermon for another day. But it's an important side note to note that accountability for one's actions is perfectly compatible with flourishing, and in fact, I think is the key to all of us flourishing, is that those who do harm are held accountable. It doesn't mean letting everyone off the hook, but it does mean that we don't get to decide who is worthy and deserving of a good life. One thing I encounter regularly in my immigration justice work is undocumented folks making the argument, we are not criminals. We are just migrants. We are not criminals. One man who I work with regularly, who was detained in multiple jails in New England by ICE, would argue, we are civil detainees. And I understand that impulse to say, wait a second, we don't deserve this. We didn't do something bad. We just moved here without the right paperwork. But part of the problem with that is that actually a lot of people who are in ICE detention in New England do have criminal records. For a lot of them, that's how they ended up in ICE custody. And of course, for some of those, you could still make the argument, well, they were just picked up on trumped-up racist charges and they didn't really do anything wrong either. And that would be true for many folks. And still, there are people who are in immigration jail right now who did harm people, who did do violence, who did hurt others. But I am an abolitionist, and I say free them all. I say free them all because once we start deciding who is worthy, it gets really scary really fast. And of course, there is an additional conversation to be had about community safety, in addition to the one about accountability. Again, another sermon for another time. I don't think it is easy or simple, but I do think it is important. For me, I'd rather err on the side of generosity. I'd rather err on the side of forgiving the debts. I'd rather offer special treatment to those who have faced oppression. And I know that's what my faith would call me to. But then what about that part of us that cries, that's not fair? When we did the work and others get the credit, when we showed up early to help make it all go smoothly and other people just showed up and had a good time without contributing, when others do something wrong and yet they still get to have a good life. One answer that I have found is annoyingly simple, but also incredibly effective. And that is to practice gratitude. The more I practice gratitude in my everyday life, the less resentful I find myself. And I do get resentful. Sometimes I show up to a volunteer meeting with my immigration justice team, and once again, nobody has signed up to facilitate or take notes, even though I signed up last week and I shouldn't have to do it again, and why can't anyone ever sign up? And I have a full-time job and a kid, you know? Do you ever have stories like that running in your head? I thought so. I didn't think I was the only person who struggled with this. But the more I practice gratitude for what I do have, and I do have a lot, the more able I am to show up with grace. That grace that was mentioned in our reading today, that poem. Then I remembered myself, all human and imperfect. There were those times I did those things. And grace was, is, never, not ever withheld from me. This is the miracle. And I do think that grace is a miracle. The grace we extend ourselves, which can be the hardest of all sometimes, to put the compassion for ourselves when we've fallen short, but also the grace we extend to others when they've fallen short too. Now, I don't mean to be Pollyanna about things. Sometimes things are just awful. And I know that gratitude isn't always for everything. It's not for the big gut punches of life, the huge losses and unfairnesses and traumas. Those things happen, and they're just crap. But gratitude does really help buffer from regular, everyday, small injustices and resentments. This is an extremely complicated world. We aren't just showing up to the baseball game with different heights and different step stools to look over the fence. There are so many variables that we can never know anything about for each person and their story and their struggles. It is nearly impossible to figure out what is actually fair in this world with the many variables we have. But I still want to work toward a world where every person has the right to flourish, even if they don't deserve it. Because that world will be a better world for everyone than the one we're living in now, even if it's not fair. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join in our closing hymn, For the Beauty of the Earth, a chance to practice some of that gratitude. It's number 21 in your hymnal. May we sing our praise whenever we can do so with authenticity. May we sing our gratitude to the source of all for all that we have. And may it help us to keep our hearts open and generous, that all may flourish in this world.